Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's Julie Hoffman with the Gold Nuggets podcast. It is November 9th, 2023, and I am here with two real estate investors who are heavily involved in the latest Bill 35 Airbnb new regulations for British Columbia. So I'm with Orion Rogers and Ryan Sawatzky. And I'm just going to let them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit of background about themselves, and then we'll get into some questions. And as I explained to them, the purpose of this is to help you where you are, or to perhaps help you maybe avoid some landmines in the future. These guys are really in the thick of it. And so, if nothing else, well, I know you're going to learn a lot. One way or another. So why don't we start with you, Orion, since you're at the top left-hand corner of my screen. Makes perfect sense. What is it? Who are you and what is it that you do? And whereabouts are you investing in real estate?
Yeah, so Orion Rogers, I own a company called Coast and Host Vacation Rentals here in Victoria, BC. Started real estate investing in 2010. I've bought and sold a few condos with my wife, and also bought primary residence. We own a short-term rental downtown Victoria, which brought us success in that space. And then from there, kind of just started getting friends and families or realtors, kind of word of mouth, to manage and look after their properties, as a service. And that grew into at a peak this summer, 32 properties. And so managing a handful in the downtown core, and then some outlier properties in Souk in some different areas, but focus on hospitality, tourism, and also consulting for speculative investors that were looking to get into the space. And I'm sure Ryan will attest to this as well, getting phone calls just for information on occupancy and revenue figures. Maybe that doesn't transpire into getting somebody as a client, but definitely delivering good solid information on the industry as a whole, and what that would look like if they were to invest in that space, short-term rentals specifically. Yep. And then it kind of parlays a little bit into just understanding the knowledge of the market, what's moving, what's not, what would be a good investment, where developments are happening in the city. And yeah, this has been a big shock, of course, since October 16th. We had rules and regulation in place. Those things have changed, and the landscape looks a little bit different. We are trying some ways to navigate that and look at making some influence or change there. But yeah, that's kind of my background and where I'm at, and we'll see where we're going here. But definitely not running away from real estate anytime soon.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So you manage about 35, and then you have, about a handful of your own?
We have two properties that we own. Okay. Yeah, and so the downtown core is the one that we started with, and looking to add a third, but waiting out a little bit on kind of interest rates and seeing where the cycle of the market is at right now. If we're in the kind of fear, depression, and desperation, or if we're going to start to climb back up and get into the speculation phases. So just see where we're at in that.
Okay. All right. And thank you very much. Ryan.
Yeah, so I started investing in real estate at a ripe old age of 22. Started buying and flipping and engaging with real estate there. I'm an electrician, is one of my hats. I have not been practicing for years now, but that's how I got involved. I currently own property in the Northwest Territories, so we own a short-term rental accommodation, a condo there, as well as a bed and breakfast. So own those two properties in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, and then here in Victoria we have two short-term rentals. One that we purchased even before Airbnb was a thing, and then one we just recently purchased this past summer. So, in terms of real estate, there really hasn't been a part that I haven't been involved in. My background was real estate marketing, not in a realtor capacity, but really in educating homeowners about how to sell and market their properties themselves. So worked with a lot of individual investors, which was a lot of fun. And so now what we do for work is we run a short-term rental management company as well as a service business. So one that's kind of unique, it's called Air Lobby. It's located
Hold on a
down.
second. My husband's gonna walk in. Hi, hon. I'm interviewing these guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. I'll talk to you in a bit. Love you.
That's life.
real life. That's real life.
Real life. That's how it goes.
Hey, I hope one of your cats jumps on the keyboard or
Yeah.
something. Like that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt about that. I heard him coming and I'm like, there we are.
I thought you were going to have like a really fascinating like air lobby anecdote or something to that effect. But yeah, so air lobby, which is really like the front desk to the vacation rentals located in downtown Victoria. So we do key exchange and bag storage, and that's where all the turnover staff and so housekeepers operate out of. We have a linen processing facility and an area where we do maintenance for all of our units as well. And
wow.
so
You have a fairly big thing going on, a big situation.
yeah, we have there's including myself, we have 33 jobs that are going to be lost as a result of these changes. So
Okay.
we employ 31 people besides my wife and I, and that's all in jeopardy right now.
It's
So-
all in jeopardy. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I really feel for both of you. I've been a real estate investor since 2001. And, we've been through some crazy times and have had, regulations, all kinds of things affect, our world, really smash things up good. And I can tell you both with confidence that already I can see that you're both strong and smart. And not that you asked for this, but it's just going to make you stronger and smarter. My hope is that we find, a good middle ground somehow, and it sounds like you're both being proactive. So on that note, what you said, you've started an organization.
Yes. So Orion and myself are founding members of, the official name is the West Coast Association for Property Rights, but we operate under Property Rights of British Columbia. So our website is propertyrightsbc.org.
Okay.
And that organization is really designed to lobby and uphold and try to educate everyday investors about their rights and what they are entitled to. And also in this particular case, educating folks about what is being taken away from them. So Orion, you want to fill any gaps there?
Yeah, I mean, it was born out of this legislation, and it's a shame that we didn't kind of put this together in the first place, because what it's doing is it's garnering a group of investors, speculators, people are already involved in it, and again, people that may or may not be, but looking to get into the real estate industry at some point, to really get them informed and get them involved and kind of get them invested in creating some certainty in laws that are coming or have passed, but there could be regulation and bylaw changes, because there's kind of a long way that it flows from law that's passed to then how it's kind of adapted in a municipality or regional district and applied to the everyday person. And there can be a lot of gray area and not understanding. So our biggest thing is kind of advocacy for education at this point. Obviously, we're trying to advocate for a collaborative effort with our municipal government, and then hopes that can kind of move up to the provincial. We'll see what that landscape looks like. We're working really hard at it. We're seeing some positive steps in that direction, but the idea really is to create an education center for people to come and get involved in, and then use that to help shape what a bylaw should maybe look like for a group of people in the short-term rental space. Obviously, our focus right now is short-term rentals, but Ryan and I have talked about this. We hope for this to evolve bigger into something for people maybe down the road that are looking to do a rezone in their property, and they're looking to do some sort of build or something. Maybe we would be a source of education that they could come to, and we could help, because we've have a precedent that someone in our group or someone else has kind of fought for that rezoning, and we can shift it over, and someone could pull some precedents out there with their own municipality. That's kind of forward thinking. Obviously right now focus is short-term rental, because tons of people, thousands and thousands of people invested across the province in this space. So and right now, no one really knows where to go. There's kind of information's kind of strewn out, and there's me and Ryan talked about this before, is people read something and then they become a source of information for somebody else, and that source of information is not a source of truth anymore, because they twisted the narrative in their own head and then have regurgitated it out in another direction, which, that's that classic case of like, oh, there was, this happened at school, and then all of a sudden, the school was burning down or something, just escalated way too far. So that's kind of the basis of the association. And the buildup is right now 8 directors, officially kind of with their own titles, and a membership that is growing by the day of people getting involved.
Okay. And so on that note, could you give an example of something that has been misunderstood? Kind of putting you on the spot here, I know, but something that's come back around. I've got a frog in my throat.
That's okay. Tis the season.
Hang on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen next.
The first example of kind of information that's been misconstrued is that there's a small percentage of people in the short-term rental space that are taking all of the profits. And people like myself and Ryan, who I have 30 properties that under management,
yes,
and are all individually owned and operated, I'm not actually taking the profits of those short-term rentals. Of course, I'm operating on a commission service-based capacity, but the revenue that's coming in is split over the individual owner and their operating costs, the cleaning fees and that team that supports that, of course, my marketing and my marketing revenue management skills, which is kind of our commission for our company, and then of course my staff and my resources in my company. So to say that myself and Ryan are just consuming mass amounts of profits from collectively, I think, Ryan, we're probably 50 properties collectively, or 60.
Collectively, we're getting close to 100.
So there you go. So collectively over 100, we're not taking 100% profits. We're taking a very small portion of that. And so that is something that's been put out there, and that is completely different from the truth on what it is. And I don't want to say the word fake news or that term, but it's something that started in one piece because a piece of information was given to someone, then that was talked about, then some sort of statistic was built on it, and then there we go. And next to know, we have a news headline, and here we are today.
And
well, yeah, go ahead.
If I can jump in on that and really kind of make this headline worthy, is that even Airbnb, when they put out their statistics around how many folks have like what percentage of hosts are getting the bookings and having the revenue. So I think right now they say 87% of hosts are just single unit owners, single unit hosts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Right. But I think that's
way different than actually what I thought. But anyway, keep going.
But that number is wildly even overestimated. So for example, between Orion and I, if you've got 35, we're like 80 units. Okay. Airbnb doesn't know who owns these units. Airbnb sees Ryan and Orion collectively having 80 units. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we get lumped into that 13%.
Okay.
When I personally, so my wife and I own 2 in British Columbia. And so that would be the stat. And so just recognizing that even the information that's coming from Airbnb it's talking about hosts, it's not talking about owners. And we're caretaking for these properties in a lot of ways. And we're paying living wages to our folks. We're investing in our downtown communities. We're enabling that opportunity to occur. But
yeah, it's such a shame. You're creating jobs and jobs that are kind of flexible. It sounds, what I've seen, we have one Airbnb and we call it kind of a gig market. Like our daughter lives there and she takes care of it. We turned it into a long-term rental. Somewhat coincidentally, we got long-term renters in there, and then this legislation came down, and we were just like, "Holy smokes, that's weird timing." And And at the same time, I can appreciate what you guys are doing. People are depending on you, and you've created these businesses, and the entrepreneur is what it keeps a community and a city and a country healthy. You know, we're the ones that are really sticking our necks out and have a lot of people depending on us, you know, depending on the situation. Do you have to have a license to do this? Do you have licenses? What is that status for the both of you?
Ryan?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So within our municipality, which is Victoria, British Columbia, we have to have licenses for each one of the units. Okay. And so each door is essentially its own small business. Okay. And so just like the coffee shop has to have a business license and the hair salon has to have a different type of license. Mind you, most of those licenses run them between $50 and $150. We have licensing here in Victoria on a per door basis of currently it's $1,500, but it's going to 25. So we are very heavily regulated by City of Victoria's bylaws. So many of the laws that have been coming into place from the province are either in line or in line with what Victoria is already doing. And so this is where the removal of the legal non-conforming really impacts us because combining that with the city, our city bylaws makes it's impossible to operate in any kind of normal function. But individually, as far as licensed operators, so we would call ourselves co-hosts or hosting agencies. We're not like what we call like a professional management service. And I'll let Orion clarify his position as well. But for us, we're hosts, and one of the things that makes it is distinct in that is that we don't take the money. So Airbnb doesn't pay, or the guest doesn't pay us directly. We have it so that the money goes directly to the owners, and then the owners pay us for services rendered. And so it avoids and it creates a whole bunch of transparency, which we love, and making sure that you know the owner is never wondering like, are they taking more than they should, or things of that nature, because you know integrity and just clarity is so valuable, and I think that's a real hallmark not only of our business, and one of the reasons that Orion and I have really kind of like solidified this is that's going to be that's a cornerstone of this organization, is that transparency and clarity and making sure that integrity leads every decision.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and Ryan kind of nailed it there. You know, there's a lot of businesses in the world that, you know, the business owner holds the money and then there's some sort of payout to something where, you know, the transparency is amazing. I mean, obviously some people are always like, oh, do you have trust issues with your owners? Well, no, of course I don't, because, you know, the revenue is going to go into their accounts, and they understand that, you know, the service rendered is a small portion of that revenue essentially to go out. And then to touch on the licensing, you know, as a company owner, you know, we hold our own business license too. Coast to Host Vacation Rentals holds its own city business license. I do think that there could be room at some point for of course, some sort of education and some sort of testing and or license on a short-term rentals area. I'm sure that it will come at some point. There probably never used to be a property management license. Now, similar to real estate, you go to Sauder BC, you know, Sauder School of BC Business, you get your real estate license, you work into a brokerage kind of thing. I don't know what that would look like, but I think down the road it would probably come. Would I be pro for it? Sure. Would I be interested in like helping with writing it? Probably, because people like myself and Ryan are subject matter experts. So like, I think if that time did come, you would really want to have a collaborative approach to writing something like that, similar to bylaws that being adopted into a city. You know, there should be some sort of, you know, let's speak with these operators that are controlling most of the units. How would regulations shape their business? how should it shape their business, and how could it constrict or restrict, and how would it look for a compliance enforcement aspect for people trying to do it without it? Like, you don't have people trying to sell real estate without a license, right? Because you have so many governing bodies to kind of do it. I mean, every now and then, of course, someone tries to middleman a real estate deal. You hear about it, and it, it doesn't really work out. But I do think on that aspect, down the road, that will probably come, and I would probably be, I would be positive towards those changes, but I don't know what they look like right now. Just to kind of,
Well, definitely sounds like you both are going to be a great resource for a lot of people to come, just based on the experience that you have already and the professionalism that you've created, and to be able to, still share that with others, even though you may have some restrictions. But on that note, what kind of conversations are being had about perhaps creating some kind of a workaround, or maybe a concession for folks like you, who again are employers to a significant number of people?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, workarounds, or what are the things that we can do? Orion gets to stand before City Council this evening at 6:30, which will be,
Oh, wow.
It will be fascinating to be a part of and watch. And we're trying to work with municipalities from a kind of a grassroots, ground up approach. Is that, like, the province isn't listening to individuals like Orion and I. What we're hoping to do is with individual investors, with homeowners, with other business owners, compel our municipalities, who are supposed to be a bit of a voice for our citizens, and who actually engage with conversation on the province about this particular law. And Ravi, the housing minister, during questions around C35, indicated that Victoria requested this particular legal nonconforming to be removed and phased out. And so we know that they are in active engagement with the province. And so we're working from a grassroots up standpoint, trying to help for the city to come back to the province and go, hey, maybe we didn't fully think this out. Maybe there is some things that we need to carve out. Maybe there are some exemptions that are required. Victoria, we're a tourism city. It's government's number one employer. Number two is hospitality. So we run on tourism, and there isn't enough hotel rooms. So there needs to be some real thought put to this. And I think, places like Kelowna are going to be experiencing similar things. There is some towns and municipalities that have received exemptions, but there's others that have put up their hand and says, hey, this is going to really impact us. Lakeside communities, all of these things that you would affect you and some of your viewers and your listeners, is those areas are going to be there's going to create some real problems, and people need to start to engage with their city councils so that the province knows that, hey, we're not okay with this.
Yeah, we're pushing back. So how is that? How's that feeling? You feeling hopeful about this? I know that when I originally talked, or you sent me a video message, it was kind of a heavy day. Do you guys feel like it's your movement is gaining some momentum?
Give her a run.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it felt disheartening to find out that the city kind of had motion for this, is what Ryan was saying, for one of these provisions, Section 36, which is the legal nonconforming, which really kind of saves a portion of short-term rentals and keeps it out of, the neighborhoods and stuff, which we all kind of were under the impression we wanted. So it was disheartening to hear that. Of course, there was this delay period of trying to get organized and trying to calm down people from saying, let's do the government and let's do this, and let's get the voice concentrated and the message unified so we can focus the efforts in the right direction. Since we made that shift, and since time brought that on, it's exactly what we're even doing. We campaigned each councillor every day. We kind of first we campaigned them to learn about their likes and dislikes and, where their stance was, or try and get a gauge of their stance, not just on STRs, but as housing as a whole, because let's not forget, this is stemming from a housing affordability issue. So once.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you really think that?
Well,
I hear it's big hotel.
Like
big pharma.
This is where the information kind of goes from here to here, and then what's portrayed into a headline. So,
okay. Well, sorry, I'll let you continue.
And I don't want to, we know who funded the study for this, that the legislation was built off of, but what's being sold is that it's a housing affordability issue, right? So that's kind of what I'm using. A lot of us know that it was funded by the BC Hotel Association, and if you read it, it says it clear and day in the McGill study, and that's really frustrating. But it's not something that we can do because they have bigger pockets than us, and it's not like the BC Real Estate Association is lobbying for short-term rentals to continue, right? So we are now the Property Rights Association, which of course is going to lobby for short-term rentals to continue. But we didn't have that body at the time, that kind of vehicle to strengthen and unify the voice. We were a bunch of angry pitchfork farmers, so to speak. So off topic.
Or truckers, or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly. And we, without flying red here, really tried to make sure that we weren't coming across of that as that, and then that's its own thing. And I don't want to speak to that at all, but sympathetic to that situation, that cause years ago. But it's a similar situation where one group is telling another group that you can't or cannot do something with something that you own. And so circle back to the counselors and getting a bit of progress. We've emailed each counselor a humanized message to try and remove the STR label and say, hey, you know what? I'm actually Orion Rogers, family of 4. I own 1 unit. I have a company that, employs a number of people. I'm not just an STR. I'm not labeled. Like, take the label away from me, and here's my face and my voice and exactly who I am. And then now multiply that by however many units are willing to kind of do that. Some people are putting their listings up and they're selling their units, and that's their choice. But other people are interested in this. And so sending those letters individually to each counselor each day. So the counselor's waking up to, oh my God, I have 350 emails. Okay, I'll read a few of these. Oh my God, this person, wow, they're going to lose a lot. Holy smokes. Oh, wow. Oh, they work in healthcare. Trying to humanize it and personify it has worked. It's now when I call a counselor, hi, my name is Orion Rogers, director with the Property Rights Association. Oh, hey, I've seen a lot of your emails. I'm just about to start replying to them. Let's have a talk, 45-minute phone call. Get off the phone and say, hey, you know what? That counselor said some things in there that they may have regret that they'd voted on, or they may have, they're reconsidering, their direction, and they can see now that the unintended consequences of this blanket legislation is actually truly just hurting people that may have voted for me. So, we've gotten on the line with 3 counselors in our city, very positive. They just motioned for a public hearing, which I think is still going on right now. There's a little bit of a battle at city council. I'm going to come in and back it up with some more speaking points tonight. Ryan is speaking November 23rd. And, so is it progress? We're not going to know until it transpires into something, but it definitely feels like we're being heard a little bit more. And we're constructing our voice and our message in the right way, that we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking for some changes, which I think every law or every bill or whatever gets passed does go through a change process at some point.
Sure, things can be modified. Like, why can't they?
Yeah, they can be modified. And let's when you have something that's this big and like that much hurts a group of people, and it doesn't really contribute to what the bigger piece is doing, that's where someone needs to sit back with a thoughtful approach. I'm going to use the housing, some words that the housing minister is using, a thoughtful, I can't remember the rest of it, but that's where something like that that section that's hurting people should be just carved out, and let's just push the other 90% through that's good, right? Or that, appears to be good. Things are delayed. We never know what it's going to look like, but yeah. So, and, circle back to that. We feel like we're making progress. Okay. It's like any path of entrepreneurial success. It's like a couple steps
Yeah.
down, going back up. Like it's just, it's gotta
Ooh.
go that way.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to be kind of ready for that every now and then we might get to a Friday where we thought we were having a winning week, and then, you know, some bad news comes out, or vice versa. Next thing you know, a case of the Mondays comes by and there's another bad article, or someone's, a different voice has stepped up. So yeah, I think it's being productive. I think it's being moving in the right direction so far.
And to further that point, so, you know, Orion has just kind of encapsulated what's going on right now. And one thing that for those that are maybe just tuning into this issue and what's going on maybe after the bill had passed, is that our organization was right in the thick of it when the bill came out. So bill came out on a Monday. Us as STR owners and managers met on the Wednesday, kind of by coincidence that it was already scheduled. By the Thursday, we had the basis of the association formed. By Friday, we were talking with lobbyists and folks that had the ear of government officials, which was remarkable because none of this is any of our backgrounds. And then when the first two readings of the bills went through, it was like 2 to 67. So 2 nays, 67 yays. And at the end, when amendments were being offered up, and after the letters to the various members of parliament and phone calls and engagement, the final nay count was like 31. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to really sway a lot of folks to be able to like, hey, maybe this situation actually requires a little bit of nuance. So instead of attacking the problem with a machete, can we go in there with a scalpel and carve out the pieces that don't make sense? You know, we are for this bill with about 90 to 95% of what it stands for. There's those very specific components that we think are damaging to people's property rights and certainly damaging to this industry. And one of our messages is really, it's like, today it's the STR community. Tomorrow, you know, it can be anybody in the real estate world now that they've removed this legal nonconforming and that grandfathering clause. There's nothing stopping them going after other zonings that have been given the same liberties. Whether that be the dry cleaner downtown, the gas station, the ALR kind of property, anything that has given that legal nonconforming. What the government has now said is we can reach in there and take it away from you whenever we want. So, which removes a lot of certainty. So there was a win there, in terms of like what you as citizens and what us as citizens, we can actually have influence in this due process, and it can happen quickly if you get organized. And I think that that's the real, the warning to other provinces, to, if you have listeners in the United States and other places, is that if the public opinion is kind of leaning on you, you better wake up to that. And our recommendation would be get organized early and try to stay ahead of this problem, opposed to being on the defense like we were. The bill came out and it was like, we all knew something was coming, and it was just like, oh my goodness, you're wiping out an entire sector.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you guys really know how to mobilize, and that's fantastic. It's really good to see, and I totally agree with what you're saying, and that is for everybody to pay attention. Get your head out of the sand, understand what's going on, understand what could potentially be coming, and do you have like your employees writing letters every day? Is it a volume type thing, or are you guys just doing this yourselves? How have you? How have you kind of structured that? Because it's true, you open 35 emails first thing in the morning with all the same topic, it's going to get a person's attention.
Yeah. I mean, to speak to that, everybody at an arm's reach that I know has been, involved in some capacity. I even have friends that don't own, they own a single family dwelling that they live in with a suite that their brother rents, and they're still sending me text message in the morning. Hey, I just saw this new. What did you think about this? Did you think about that? And because they do recognize that at some point they might want to rent out their suite in a 30-day minimum capacity, or they might want to buy a second property, or whatever that looks like. They're like, oh, this is going to affect me somewhere down the line on something that I thought I might want to do in 2 or 5 years time. To circle back to your investors that maybe haven't entered a space like this yet, or to touch on what Ryan's saying, just any person that is looking to invest in any sort of property, right? And especially if they're buying any sort of legal non-conforming property, that can change hands legally, that they can continue operating a business in, that is up for, kind of on the chopping block at some point. Could be, maybe not, maybe so. But sorry, and I just kind of lost my train of thought there, but
well, I think what you're getting at is, of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but as property owners, again, whether we're single family home owners living in our own house, yeah, we might want to move. So we may want to have that option. It's nice to have options because sometimes the market will change or it'll shift, and you want to have as many tools at your disposal to be able to use in order to survive or thrive, or pivot, and they're definitely trying to take something that could definitely help a lot of people away. Taking one of those options away.
Yeah. And by removing the option, in this immediate situation, they're really, hurting a very select group of people. Like, I don't want to say small, I say select, because it is this one clause, section 36, the legal non-conforming, those people made investments on complete legitimate foundations, and everybody involved in that investment would now feel a bit of feel bad because the mortgage broker, oh, that was a great idea, ran good numbers. The realtor, hey, this is going to be a great property. It's going to be great for you and your family. The furniture salesperson, yeah, here's $30,000 in furniture. Your short-term rental is going to be very good. And then even coming to me or Ryan, right? Because we get tons of emails. Everybody has kind of contributed into this one individual property owner of decision making. All of us thinking and basing our decisions off of a viable business solution, because licensing, bylaw, regulation, zoning, all of those things checked all the boxes. Okay, this is it. You're going to be above board. And it's really scary to think that that is kind of now on a false pretense, so to speak. It's been a carpet pull situation where that, and I have a client that just, he just took conditions off 2 weeks before the legislation. He just got the keys on November 1st. And, I'm meeting him here now, and he's like, what am I going to do? He can't, he's even considered just bailing on the deposit and just saying, and losing that $20,000-$30,000 and just eating it. He's going to figure it out. He's a smart guy. He's actually a police officer. He's just an everyday guy with two kids and a wife that's in a master's program. And this is where we circle back to, a select group of people that, we're making informed decisions are going to be seriously devastatingly financially hurt. Stress, anxiety. I can only imagine the conversations that they're maybe having around the dinner table, or what that looks like, and we've all been in situations like that. I'm sure if we have, with your husband and your wife, and something, COVID, really affected a lot of us, in our mental health. And, I see a lot of that happening already, because I get on the phone with my clients and they're like, oh man, what am I going to do here? And I'm like, I give them my suggestions and my pivots and talk about what the association's doing, and they're involved, but there is a lot of counseling going on there. And it's, it's scary to think that one or two lines of writing can just change, millions of dollars investment very quickly for people that were complete law-abiding citizens, right?
To bring that into a sound bite opportunity is that when we invest in real estate, one of the things that I'm very conscious of is my certainty, right? And if there is big question marks about how my property is going to be treated, or how I can utilize my property, I want to be compensated for those things. Okay. And for every one of us as real estate investors, when if you can't provide a certain degree of a certain amount of certainty, then then all of a sudden the deal goes, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't look as good. And, prices come down. And I think you're going to start to see that, or you're certainly going to see that in our market here in Victoria. And I suspect Kelowna and some of these other places that, that this has been part of the ecosystem, it will change because the certainty is right out the window in terms of how the regulations are going to come out. What exactly they're going to look like. Obviously there's, very clear, you can't do this, you can't do that. And so, but if I can summarize, just that one of the things that as a property rights advocacy group stands on is that we just want a degree of certainty. We bought this with a commitment, legally functioning, legally operating, and now you've just kind of arbitrarily taken that away. And removed our certainty. And further to Orion's point about, being counselors, right? I have people calling me and being like I haven't slept in days. I like, this is really going to impact my family. Like, what are we going to do here? And then, folks like Orion and I, like we wear that and we come together and go, we put out a brave face and we go, yeah, hey, it's like, we're going to figure it out, where it's going to be okay. But, the reality is there's so much up in the air right now. The regulations haven't been crafted. We don't know exactly how this is going to be manipulated. We have two separate acts right now that are opposing one another. There's mixed messaging. You have the Residential Tenancy Act and you have the Short-Term Accommodation Act. One states that, you could rent for 30 days and have a lease associated. And the other one saying, well, actually, you can't do anything less than 90 days. So we've got some conflicting things occurring, and that just continues to exacerbate the uncertainty, which in any market, whether that be real estate or the like stock market, things like that, people want to have a certain degree of certainty that things are going to continue relatively on the same path that they are right now.
Well, especially if that was their primary use of their primary business plan for the property. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you see people doing other than, panicking? Do you see a lot of people listing, or are most people kind of waiting?
Yeah, no, we're seeing listings increase in Kelowna. I'm sure in Victoria. I'm sure you're seeing the same in Kelowna.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we're seeing a few every day, and fair enough. I totally understand that. If you bought pre-sale, and you've got a good degree of equity in there, I would say most people that are selling probably have a good chunk of equity, and they're like, hey, you know what? Just going to cash out. They're listing. That doesn't mean they're selling. Yep. Now we're seeing the market increase with volume. And we're gonna see is a decrease in price, right? Market, supply and demand, and we're not seeing a big increase in rental volume, as relative to what we thought. Most people are like, well, I'm not going to put a long-term market because the numbers just don't make sense. I'll just sell it. I'll either take the loss on the chin away, or I'll just take whatever equity out I can. But again, nothing is moving that fast right now, and only time will tell. And maybe they drop interest rates by 4% and all of a sudden it's a buying frenzy. But reality of that is very hopeful, and hope is not an investment strategy, of course. No. But I would say that, seeing, again, circle back to the one line, and then seeing the market, kind of get flooded, and what Ryan's talking about is a degree of certainty. That removes it with a bit of like government manipulation, a little bit, and a little bit of, I don't want to use the word market manipulation, but it can be kind of looked at that way, that all of a sudden now a market is dumped into, which it's not one market maker increasing the supply. It's kind of pulling it from a bunch of people and throwing it in there, involuntary, and forcing those investment horizons and those decisions to kind of, come a lot closer than where they were. The timeline is crazy. You've got $500,000 properties that someone's got to make a financial decision on in like 3 months, when they had a 3 to 5 year plan on it, or whatnot. Because we've always looked at real estate as, you buy it for the long game, right? You buy it for 5 years, you buy it for 10 years. Very rarely do people buy it for 2. The only time people sell it in 2 is because the market just moves so fast, and they're like, okay, I'm going to make a quick decision and go this way, right? And pivot on that direction. So yeah, it's an interesting landscape to look at, and definitely seeing the listings coming in, daily in that
Yeah.
space. So,
Yeah.
hmm.
Yeah, Ryan, anything to add to that?
In terms of, yeah, in terms of like what we're seeing for listings, I think the only thing I think I could add to that is that there's the individuals that are selling, okay, or they're going to try to do the long-term thing, but there's also this like kind of third factor, which is it's going to end up on like kind of a gray market scenario where folks are going to go underground. Things aren't going to be regulated in the way that they have been. That's going to be a bit of cloak and dagger. We do expect that there's going to be some kind of snitch line. So when people see suitcases in lobbies, there's going to be phone calls made and people followed. And we see it. The future of this is not being great for anybody. The
Yeah.
only people we really see as winning in this situation is the hotels. And if you to your investors out there, if you've got the ability to get your hands on a hotel in any of these sectors, do it because your occupancy is gonna go through the roof. So I think that would be my only add there.
Well, and the folks that are within, the guidelines and are going to get grandfathered in, they'll do well. They
Yeah.
will.
If they can, I mean, that's what our advocacy is working
right,
towards right
of
now.
course.
And so,
Yeah.
just to circle back to Victoria, we have 23 buildings that are legal non-conforming.
Mhm.
The total volume of those buildings is 1,600. The current license, like issued licenses, is only 624.
Mhm.
And the big fear was that the 624 was going to grow to 1,600 and consume that. And we're going to get this 20% year on year growth. And you probably read about some of that. And I'm sure your investors read about some of that in the papers. The idea at this point, would be to just protect those 624 licenses. And this is where that, carving out a little bit with a scalpel, protecting the people that are played by the rules, remove the 1,600, which caps the growth, and allows their and then circle back to occupancy. So the hotels are still running. There's an alternate industry of accommodation. Occupancy now is blended and shared across it without the fear that this could continue growing and of course diluting and consuming housing and rising prices and speculation. So there's a lot could be done there with a couple changes in the regulation or amendments or adoptions or an exemption of some sort, but a provision to kind of save the grandfathered, and again save the pain of the financial pain and hardship, right, that comes with it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. There's a lot to sounds like there's a lot of uncertainty, but you guys are getting closer and closer and you're not backing down. And how can people join your group?
Right.
Does it make sense for people outside of Victoria to join your group?
Yeah, it certainly does. Because again,
Okay.
we see this as a property rights problem that does affect
Just Canada-wide kind of a thing?
Yeah, particularly British Columbia.
Okay.
But the reality, because that's who we're defending right now with the BC legislation, just recognizing that. So with this BC legislation, we're focused on those property rights, which is the legal non-conforming, being able to pull in, because it applies to, again, remembering it applies to all kinds of different organizations, or situations. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
You've got a small apartment building, okay, and maybe it was built 70s or earlier, and it doesn't have a sprinkler system in it, and you've abided by all the rules and the regulations connected to that. You've done the necessary upgrades, but by current standards, it doesn't conform, right? So it's legal because that's the way that the bylaws or the laws and the zonings were then. But now today, those zonings and bylaws have changed, and you've been essentially grandfathered into the old way of doing things. Okay. And so what we've now done, and recognizing that, or what the British Columbia, what the BC NDP has done, is said, well, that grandfathering, that certainty that you had around that particular use case, well, maybe we're going to reach in and take it, and it just goes on the whims of the day, using the example about, sprinkler systems in these kinds of, small apartment buildings that once upon a time didn't need it. Let's say that there's a horrific incident when one of these things goes up, and a person from the government goes, well, you know what? There's a lot of these buildings out there. You know what? We think that we should maybe take away their legal non-conforming, and force them to either stop operating or come into alignment.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a part of me that agrees with that, giving them the opportunity to come into alignment.
Well, yeah.
Our particular case, there's no coming into alignment. It doesn't exist.
Right.
With the way that the laws are written, and particularly with the compounding of our municipal legislation and the provincial legislation, there's no conforming. There's no real practical way of doing this. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that there's like a couple of real good examples to showcase that this is, it's the STR community right now that's impacting this. Tomorrow, next year, it's going to be something different. We have this the homes, or the Homes for People, I think is the initiative that's coming out from the provincial government right now, and which the NDP government actually just gave a lot of your investors more liberties by getting rid of the regulations around density, and allowing for multiple dwellings to be built on a single lot that used to only have a single family unit. Now, from a Property Rights BC organization standpoint, to us, that's good. What they've just done is they've handed rights. They've given you more options. They've given you more liberties in that. And we're not going to fight against getting more liberties. We're really anti, the government taking away your liberties and your rights, particularly when it comes to real estate and property. So how to get involved. So right now, if you look and search up propertyrightsbc.org, or Property Rights BC on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, we have team members that are working tirelessly to moderate these groups, to bring folks in, to provide and create content, to do all these things. It's actually quite remarkable. And so you'll find a way to kind of get into the group through one of those avenues. And we will be, we're just in the final stages of producing an actual membership, and that membership will give you certain entitlements and certain access to certain things, whether that be, updates on, legal situations, updates in regulation, and updates on lobbying efforts that are happening kind of behind closed doors, and kind of giving some folks a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Is one of the values that we intend to have, opposed to like the individual investor. Like, how do I go and do I go hire a lawyer myself to try to fight this? Probably that's probably not the best course. We're working with some of the best right now, both at the municipal level and at the provincial level. So, those would be the ways I would say to kind of plug in. Is there anything specific, Orion, that you draw them towards or point them towards?
No, I think just like the Facebook group just got kind of curated and finished. We kind of like mobilized into a WhatsApp group right away, just sharing quick information. And from that, it's kind of evolved. The website was built. We had a petition going around, lots of good information, lots of infographics. And now it's really just trying to get everybody consolidated into one place where information can just be easily shared. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, like Ryan was saying, once we kind of unveil our membership, people that actually really truly want to be involved, kind of invest in this process or invest in this, don't want to say invest in the cause, but invest in certainty, so to speak. That's how they would get, kind of more information and a voice and be able to truly make suggestions. Because everyone kind of comes in with, oh, we should do this. We did it. There's like a million different suggestions. We kind of have to figure out which ones make sense and kind of analyze it. But of course, once you come into that membership And, everyone's kind of delivered who they are and their skill set and what they, what they're invested in, or what their resources could be. We've got lots of people that are on the digital asset creating side. That person has come in right away. They're invested not only real estate side, but they're invested in this property rights association because they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to create the digital assets for this. And so we're also, just bringing people into under that umbrella, and then making sure that their direction that they want to go is in the same kind of like aligns with our vision. And that's would be then they're going to get more information on what we're kind of doing on a weekly or daily basis and where they could fit into the process, because it's at this point it's a volunteer effort by everybody, right? And no one kind of signed up for this, and it feels great, and a lot of us are very passionate about it. But the more kind of teams we build inside of this organization, or association I should say, the better we'll have chances of kind of redirecting efforts into whatever department we're looking at influencing. Ryan and myself are kind of, public facing. Of course, with our subject matter expert on short-term rentals, we can kind of confidently deliver information that we know, and also that we're learning about, or also that's being developed. And then, of course, our efforts in whatever kind of advocacy area that we're working on, right? And even just looking at Bill 35 as a whole, there's probably like 10 plus areas that we could truly advocate on to try and influence some sort of change in the amendment. And we have to really focus on and sequence out which ones are the most important, and which one would be the kind of fail safe last, because even at this point right now, so many different people involved, what might speak to one person doesn't speak to the other. So really trying to get an idea of the membership of like what it looks like. Again, we don't want something like this gone, because 90% of it's good, but even in the 10% of it, the 10% has to be kind of segmented out on what is truly most important to focus on, and then the pathway to get to that, to achieve that goal. So
well, and one thing that I've really I just keep going back to in my head is, a lot of people think that real estate investors are these big money hungry fat cats in three-piece suits. You know what I mean? And most of the people that I've been talking to, they're like you, they're like me. I've got kids. I do real estate because it gives me freedom, and it helps me have again options in life. Just like you guys did you started your Airbnbs, and then you expanded into becoming employers, entrepreneurial employers. And I think there's just something so magical about that. And I think the more people understand that there are so many of us that are just trying to be out there, not necessarily having to have a 9-to-5 grind job, making somebody else rich. We're trying to, protect our own wealth and create legacy for our kids and for our future. I think the more people realize that, and that's really who's under attack right now. It is a bunch of the little guys, and we just shouldn't stand for it. So make everybody that's listening to this or watching this, there's a link around here that we'll have the links to the Facebook page. We'll have the links to how to get involved in the organization. Keep in touch with these guys, because they're doing great things, and they're going to be able to guide you and direct you. And, talking to people across North America, get involved, I can't remember which one of you said it, but get involved sooner than later. Understand it's my understanding that this has been coming for 5 years. This has been underway for 5 years, and we're just going about our lives, taking our kids to soccer practice and basketball practice and coaching teams, and, trying to get a holiday here and there, through our busy lives. And these big hotel have been trying to do this, and now it's like they've done it. Well, not necessarily. You can stand up for yourself, and the more of us do, the more likely, success or concessions or, some kind of a middle ground can be achieved. So thank you so much, both of you. I know you volunteered to do this, and you're working hard to help a lot of people. So just again, send me all of your information so people can reach out to you and hopefully get this thing even stronger than it already is. I wish you both luck, and please keep me posted on progress, and maybe we'll have another one of these in like 6 weeks or so, just to kind of update people on what you've learned so far, and what people can do moving forward, and we'll go from there. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that
To both
sounds
of you?
good. Yeah.
And one,
Awesome.
one,
Yeah,
one
sorry,
last
anything,
one,
we're gonna sign off pretty soon here, but is there
yeah.
anything else you want to add before we do?
Yeah, just in terms of folks reaching out and communicating with us, I think all of us at this organization here want to reach out to other groups that have been forming to fight this issue. And so, if you are a part of one of these organizations, there's clumps of them. Whether you're STR, short-term rental managers, or owners, or strata units that are like, this isn't right. And you've banded together in some fashion. There is freedom in numbers and standing together, and so please get in touch with us. And if we can get all these little individually globules working together and pulling on the same rope, I think we can make some magic.
Definitely, yeah. Can't agree.
All right, here. That's awesome. Anything else to add, Orion, before we hop off?
No, I just appreciate the time and the conversation, and yeah, just second what Ryan said is reach out. Even if you're just one person, or if you're 3 friends that bought a property and you want to talk about it, the more stories, the more people involved. And to second what you said, Julie, is that if you're in another province, please reach out as well if it hasn't happened in your province, because we would be more than happy to work with people to get you on the right direction of where you should be going, in anticipation for what could possibly be coming or what is coming.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody, and anybody that's listening to this or watching this. Be sure to share it. Be sure to take action. Thanks again for listening and watching, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.